What's going on, everyone? In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys a case study for one of our partners, and we're going to be talking about how we were able to take them from zero to almost probably $1 million a month by the time this video goes live in 90 days. Now, the key thing about this partner specifically was that this was all organic, so there was no sort of paid traffic involved, at least of yet, which will be probably in the plan later on. We'll probably talk about that in a second. This was all back-end ascension, so meaning no public traffic directly was touched or dealt with in terms of converting them into sales. This was all through back-end products that this partner already had, which we'll also talk about. And what we walked out with in these 90 days, most importantly, was that we had a proven offer and a product and raving fans for this. Now, what I think gets a little bit less emphasized most of the time is that we were able to do this without any sort of pushy marketing. There were no hard sales processes with this, and there wasn't any massive teams or overhead to help out with maintaining this sort of demand. And usually a lot of teams will churn out after they do some sort of massive launch, right? Now, something that is spoken of very less in our industry, to say the very least, is that a lot of people might glamorize hitting these metrics, which is great and all, but not many people actually talk about how to maintain this level of growth, right? Because usually, anytime most e-learning businesses or anything that you launch as a product or anything will always go spiking up when you originally do it. However, most of the time what happens is because there's no proper foundations or processes in place to maintain that growth, you are usually going to see them plateauing or at least trending downwards over time. Now, we're going to break down not the specifics for this partner's privacy and protection, but more so the high level kind of pillars that we're going to be using that will allow us to maintain this level of growth, and also what led us to achieving this level of result in such a short time span. Now, I will preface, this is very hard to execute. It's not easy to do if you haven't done it already. We've obviously done this over the last 6-7 years. And so we've made countless mistakes. And my goal for this is to share with you guys so you can avoid those and expedite a lot of these processes. So over time and over the years, we've been able to really reduce how long it takes us to take an offer from 0 to 100 and grow strong legs with this business as it's continuing to grow. So the first thing and the first pillar that I'll showcase is don't go big, start small, right? Might be a little obvious, but not really to many people if you speak to them in this industry, especially if you're organic, right? And I'll also preface too that organic and paid are two different worlds. You can probably execute these same pillars for both organic and paid. However, if you try to do the same thing you do here for organic, for paid, you are going to get a completely different result. You have to realize that organic is more closely tied to you personally as a brand, as a creator, and as a face. And so meaning everything that you do with these people, they have a certain judgment of you already. And if you do things the wrong way, which is why this is so important over here, you will usually tarnish your reputation, which will prevent you from selling long-term or even staying in the game long-term. And these are creators and brands and businesses that we usually see fade out really quickly, right? Paid is a lot more different. So maybe that'll be a whole separate video. However, today we're going to be mainly emphasizing stuff for organic. So if you have a large following, even if you don't, but you have a core audience of people that truly follow you, they love what you do, you're an expert at your craft or your niche, this would help you in some shape or form if you're launching or trying to maintain or grow your online education business, right? Now, don't go big, start small. The meaning behind that is, especially if you're organic and you have, let's just say, this pool or this pond of people that are considered your pipeline, let's just say, right? when you are taking a product that has not yet been created, right? This mystery box of whatever product you're going to sell them, you have no idea what the feedback is going to be right off the bat. So it does not make sense to just ship it right away to the entire well. And the reason why is, let's just say you launch something with the intention that maybe you thought that it was going to work some way and the feedback was potentially negative. You're going to poison this entire well of people or your pipeline. And the chances of you maximizing that long term will be reduced. So a lot of people are very short term thinking, and brands, when I see them executing this, is they want to go big and hit the home run right off the bat, have the most massive launch. Amazing. You'll probably do well off the first launch. But like I said in one of our other videos as well, as much as we want to prioritize growth, we want to prioritize preservation, right? Which is why many businesses don't maintain this level of growth. So when you are doing this thing of creating a product and an offer and you're taking it to market, you only want to take it to a subsidy of that well of people, right? So this small portion over here should be the only people that get exposure to it. And in this case particularly, our partner already had a product that was more so low ticket, and that was already doing really well. So rather than us taking this new offer to the public lead flow, we only presented it to our true raving fans already. These are people that already trust us, already believe us, and so we can mitigate a lot of those things and a lot of those trust barriers that usually you'll have to deal with when you're dealing with more people on the public side that haven't really ever paid you or became your customer before, right? And so when you start small, are you going to have the most massive growth right away? Definitely not. However, what it's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to course correct in a lot more easier and simpler fashion. And you're going to be able to make sure that you can design an offer that resonates with people. You can make sure that all your processes are working properly before you actually start shipping this further and further out, right? And so this ties into the next point really closely because you want to create demand. I'm always a fan of having people come to us rather than us having to chase and beg people to convert. That's just a sale, in my opinion. That's ineffective. And marketing is usually what complements sales. Or you would have to really do a lot of the follow-up processes, more hard selling. And for a lot of these organic brands, you don't want to take that approach because that might have a negative interpretation on your brand. And I do think this is going to be a massive shift over these next 1 to 2 years in terms of high ticket closing in general, where if you're selling for a personal brand specifically, if you are hard selling or pushing people into buy, the chances of those people converting, especially in this market and the way this market is trending, is only going to get lower and lower and lower. True sales, especially with an audience that is close knit with that brand, is going to come from truly building stronger relationships. And a lot of those sales frameworks that you've probably seen online still will be applicable, but how you deliver those, how you build that relationship, and the intention behind that is going to play a huge role in a lot of sales teams, in a lot of sales processes, and in a lot of marketing. Now, usually, if you have great marketing, you're able to help out the sales department really well and vice versa, right? Now, if we look at the definition of what demand actually is, right? A good way to put it is, for example, if you ever go to, an easy example is like a Rolex store or some sort of luxury watch brand, and you try to buy one of their most kind of higher tier items, you're not going to be able to just pull it right off the shelf and acquire it. That's what creates demand. Now, if you're able to pick up anything off the shelf and just purchase it, that's more of a commodity. Anyone can essentially come on and, take out their credit card and purchase it. There's no friction, which can also be beneficial. However, if we're talking about high ticket stuff specifically, you're not going to be able to just take it off the shelf and purchase this. Now, what most brands usually do is they turn their high ticket programs and offers or whatever kind of service you have into a commodity. And so when you're selling something, and especially when you're just starting to sell it and you're bringing it to market, you want the market to feel the buzz around this product or the service that you're releasing. And if they're not going to feel that, the repercussions of that might come later down the line, because trying to reverse that and build demand later on when a product does not have it from the jump is really hard to do. That's a tougher mountain to climb. Is it impossible? Definitely not. But if you're starting this thing, you definitely want to start on the right foot and avoid those pitfalls, because these are a lot of the problems that we don't see firsthand, but they're more second order consequences, right? So how do you have more demand? It's simply supply and demand, right? You want to have true scarcity behind your products. Now, by you going to a smaller base over here, which is why these two connect to each other really well, you are purposefully limiting to the outside world access into this product. And immediately the demand for this goes up higher. People naturally want to ascend towards something that they are not able to access or have. It's just how we're wired as humans. Now, when they are starting to see that there's limited access and there's true scarcity, or whether it's a close-knit environment or whatever kind of parameters you have around your service or program or whatever it might be, there's going to be more of an uptick in people wanting to hear more and be tuned in what you have to say. So while you're selling to these people, you can now start to formulate this pipeline that can last you a much longer time, right? This moves us on to the next point. So a big problem I see in our space right now, which a lot of brands I think execute poorly and usually have to come back to, is the aspect of the middle of the funnel, right? Most people, and this is where, again, just in terms of talking about trends and where things are going for this industry, I'd like to say that this is going to be one of the more crucial parts over the next 12 to 24 months for brands. And those that are able to adapt to this will have a lot more longevity in the space, and those who aren't will be able to, probably suffer and have to sacrifice a lot more market share. Now, there was a time, if we're going to talk about a little bit more of cycles of this space, there was a time when you really only needed to be great at content, because there wasn't really that much competition. There wasn't really that many people in your space or niche that were also selling the same thing as you. And so you didn't need to be good at sales. You didn't really need to be good at marketing, but you just needed to have eyeballs on you. And I remember for one of our partners, a while back, about 2017, 2018, we were literally selling a 5 to 10K offer off a notes app screenshot, and we were DMing those to people, and it would be working, right? You try doing that in this market space, it'd be the most horrific thing you could try to do. That being said, times change, and with times you have to evolve and pivot. Then came the second wave, where a lot of people are now, getting more accustomed to starting sales operations and sales processes, and more people are forced to jump on sales calls to buy these high ticket programs. Cool. They work pretty effectively, and especially those that are doing this at a very high level, have a great team and a great process, a great product, and know how to get traffic, are probably crushing it in this market right now. Now, the thing that most of these brands usually mistake for, and it's because it's one of those things that isn't the most prettiest. However, it will usually force many brands to, when they scale up to a certain degree, to have to regress and come back to this eventually, regardless, to make sure that they can still have that longevity and keep growing. Now, what is that thing? That's that middle ground over here. It's the middle of the funnel. And usually, if you notice, funnels are more so kind of like what I drew up here. It's more so of a rigorous process where you're driving people down this thing, and it's a numbers game, right? The more people you have up here, percentages will keep decreasing as you go down this funnel, and then you'll have this kind of portion of people down here that are going to be your buyers for this, right? So you can play the simple numbers game. The more traffic you have, the more people on your application, that fill out a survey, that book a call with your team, and then a smaller percentage of that's going to convert. Great. Again, can work really well and is working really well for many businesses in this market that we're in right now. Now, a flywheel is something that continuously takes people that enter into your ecosystem and drives them through the customer journey they need to get to in order to reach this point in the sales process. Now, in a simpler way to say this is very much more so like quality over quantity. Both are important. You can't discredit one or the other. But when you focus on quality, especially again, like we said at the beginning of this video, this is more oriented for organic brands who really want to maximize what they already have, right? If you want to focus on that, you want to make sure you have those processes in place to make sure you can collectively take people down this journey without having to force them through this rigorous funnel. Now, diving a little bit more deeper into how you actually do that, the best way to get people down from the top to the bottom of the funnel or expedite the time it takes them to go through that process and having that flywheel is through different products and making them take more actions, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a product that they have to purchase from you. And when I say product, it's probably going to be more of a lower ticket product in between here, or more so of a mid-ticket product versus a higher ticket product that they're going to be having at the bottom over here, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily even need to be, them having to give them your credit card, give them their credit card to you and become a customer in order to do this. But it's usually one of the fastest ways to get people to expedite and take action and, basically showcase that they're more committed than the average lead that's going to be coming in through your funnel. So ideally, what you want to be able to do is identify when you get, let's just say, a YouTube subscriber, how long does it usually take that YouTube subscriber to become a lead? And a lead is someone that basically gives you their name, email, and probably phone number. How do you take them into becoming a marketing qualified lead, right? Which is usually probably somewhere up here. Marketing qualified lead is basically someone that gives you this plus more information about them. So this could be some sort of survey or application that gives us a little bit more context on who this person is and what bucket they fit into. And then one after that is product qualified leads. These are people that will pay you and probably give you the information above and pay you for a lower ticket product, and they will basically start building their trust with you from that point on. Now, when you have this type of ecosystem, you're able to make sure that there's a constant flow and a constant cycle that makes sure that people that are at the top are constantly being rinsed and being poured into the next stage without having to force them there, right? Because the way sales and the way humans buy is everyone buys on their term. Each individual has a different sense when it comes to the urgency behind buying something. Some people make the buying decision on the spot right away. Some people take months, even years to make a buying decision. Everyone's psyche is wired differently. Your goal for marketing over here is to make sure that you're showing up almost every day and you're in front of this person, and most of the time, if you're showing up every single day, I'm hoping that you're not just spamming them, but providing value where they're still receptive and they want to keep hearing from you, and you want to meet them at the intersection of when they're ready. Usually, most brands don't have this process in place because I can understand it's pretty intensive and it can be a lot of work to set up and get rolling. But it's one of those things that it pays off dividends long term, because as you continue to scale your operation, as you continue to probably go even into paid ads, these are all things that you're going to necessarily need to do, or else you're going to be playing a very rigorous numbers game and your acquisition cost is going to just keep climbing and climbing and climbing. And so there's a lot of brands in our space that I know firsthand, and there's a few out there that share this transparently, which is, kudos to those people. But there's a lot of brands that have ramped up really, really fast, but they're still probably breaking even, or sometimes they're even negative, and they have to climb out of that hole because these are systems and processes that aren't in place. And so those companies that are able to build a proper segmentation and flywheel to be able to speak to the masses and a bunch of people, but cater that communication and marketing just like if I was to communicate to someone individually, that's the real secret. And I'll probably make a deeper video on segmentation and how powerful that can be if utilized the right way, because ultimately marketing is you basically speaking to many people at a wide range, but being able to tailor what they need and provide them with that, right? If you're just basically, let's just say, emailing, your whole entire list of people, let's just say talking about email marketing for the sake of this example, and let's just say you're just blasting out an email to everyone with the same topic, with the same content, you'll probably have some people that might be receptive to it, but majority of the time you'll probably see that you'll have lower open rates, you'll have lower conversation rates or reply rates to those emails. And that's because it's not geared towards exactly for each segment or type of person. There are, within each brand and each company, there are different personas and different buckets of your ICP, right? People have ICP 1, 2, 3, and 4. Usually more. Depends on, again, the size of your business and how long you've been really identifying your ICPs, right? But when you really can categorize where each person of your niche or in your business sticks around to be in, and you can start placing them in these buckets, now you can start communicating to them in a much more personalized, surgical fashion. And so immediately that separates you from your competition, because most of the time, most brands aren't doing this. And B, it's going to be able to help them a lot more closely. They're going to feel that you're communicating to them exactly what they need based on what they've already shown you, told you, or have done through their actions throughout your marketing process. So depending on the action someone is taking and the information they're giving you, you can really tailor your marketing and flywheel structure to be in a way where you are making sure that every lead that comes in through your process is being nurtured and taken care of in a way where you know that predictably this would be a lead that can convert in the next 6 to 12 months, right? And so the more data you can get on that, the more profitable you can see the business getting, and also your acquisition cost will also be maintained and not kill the business like most, right? So that one probably requires its own video, and I'll probably go into that maybe in some other time. And this, I guess, also relates to what we just spoke about a bit, but some of the best brands that I know have a moat. They really stand out in their industry. There's usually this percentile where most of the competition is fighting for over here, and these brands are usually just sitting at the top. Now, what makes these brands unique, or what makes these creators or businesses unique or build a moat, like what actually defines a moat? It's anything that really is hard to replicate or hard to do for anyone else in your space. Now, you, for example, might be an expert in a certain area within your niche that most people probably have a hard time relating to, or maybe able to deliver the same level of depth to that niche or to that topic or whatever it might be. And that could be potentially your moat. Sometimes you got to find your moat. It's not going to just come and through and fall in your lap. It's going to be more so of a process that's ongoing, but you have to spend time allocating and figuring out, as you're building this business, as you're scaling, and as you're doing all the things that we just kind of talked about, to find those things that are really hard to replicate. I see a lot of brands not really building a cushion between themselves and the competition or the other market. And you want to do this because those that aren't doing the best job at this, that's potential market share for you as a brand and as a business to take back from and make sure you are still growing long term. So I'm a firm believer that if you are really good at what you do, and you've proven your expertise and you have those raving fans of people that already follow you, you have some sort of underlying moat. It's your job to make sure that you can be aware to that. And the best way to really find these things is by listening to your customers. You'd be surprised how much you can learn by hearing them out, whether it's on sales calls or even if it's, interviews with, students or users or products, customers. You can truly find those things that make you realize why this person bought. And the more you can get clarity on your moat, the more you can leverage it, the more you can lean into it. Because sometimes people are just sitting on the thing that makes them super valuable and they're not leveraging it, or they're not, doubling down on that one thing, and they're probably focusing on 100 different other things that don't move the needle as much, or doesn't create enough separation from them and the rest of the market, right? And the last thing, and this kind of brings everything a little bit better, but together, is the LTV, right? I see a lot of brands mistakenly being short-sighted of this thing because it is one of those things that isn't immediate. It's not going to hit your bank account right away, but LTV could be something that keeps you in the game longer. It adds much more longevity to your business, and it makes it more of an asset than it is just a turning wheel to constantly, be in a process of acquiring customers and not being able to sustain itself, right? Because all it takes is one day. For example, if you're a whole paid based business and you have no sort of LTV structure behind it, Meta could shut you down overnight. You lose all your customer acquisition process, or your acquisition cost is going to skyrocket, and you're not going to be able to supplement that bleeding in the business. By having LTV, and a lot of these things are day one, you'd want to think from day one when you're launching or trying to scale your high ticket coaching or e-learning business, right? So one example is I'm a practicer of, buying mentorships and buying masterminds. Like I am, it's one of my kind of obsessions really, is I will throw money at a lot of the high quality stuff. Because it's the space I'm in, and I feel like the best way to really learn about a human's buying process is to actually go through it yourself. And I've been through a lot of processes myself, and some are done really poorly, which you can learn from as well, but some are done really well as in the process too. And so a quick kind of summary is like, I was part of this one kind of mastermind, and it's more so like it was more like a community type of program. We can just call it a mastermind. But the thing behind it that was really interesting was how they were able to make the LTV of their customer almost anywhere from 150 to 200K over the span of 12 to 18 months of them being part of this thing. Now, there was obviously a lot of stuff tied to their business model and how they did this, but this business didn't just focus on the one-time sale that they were going to get from most people, which is, again, I'd like to say most brands in the space who obsess over more so just those one-time deals. And that's usually because there's no sort of recurring process or reason for people to renew. And usually that's a sign that product is not as great. And with AI and a lot of transitions that are coming up over the next few years, I feel like products are only going to get, harder to make sure they stand out and you do a good job of delivering. And by equipping AI into a lot of these products, you can make them, that much more better. However, that's a whole separate conversation. The goal is, if you can make a product so good that your ideal customers truly cannot live without it or can't leave your ecosystem, that's when you have a real, back to what we were saying, a moat, right? Again, this is one indication that I see in our space that doesn't get a lot of, credit or a lot of emphasis, is how great your product and fulfillment structure can make the business that much more revenue and provide that much more longevity, right? Where most people are scrambling over, 5K to anywhere from 30K one-time offers. Usually after that, there's no sale that's ever going to happen again. And in my opinion, you're always going to have a much and even, from most people I've spoken to in the space and over the years I've seen, it's much easier to sell to someone that already likes you than trying to sell to someone that's a cold stranger that has found you over Meta ads or YouTube ads, and trying to get them to buy. So if from the first product, and this starts all the way from the back over here when we talk about Flywheels, from the moment they entered your ecosystem, from the moment they started consuming your content, from the moment they probably purchased your first low ticket, if you did a great job here, that's really going to be your launch pad to showcase how far you can take this, right? And the more of a better job you do as you take up the standard and take up the price point, the more rewards on the backside of that can be given, right? For example, a really simple example of how to make sure you can improve your LTV is, let's just say, most offers, for example, sometimes offer lifetime, right? Which is a tricky word and marketing buzzword to use to try to drive more sales, but nothing really is lifetime. I guess you can say that the course recordings, if that's your offer, can be lifetime because you can always deliver that, but you can't always guarantee that you yourself as a coach can always be there lifetime, right? Again, I'm not trying to slander the term. I've seen it work. However, it's just a double-edged sword, right? However, if we look at, let's just say 12-month program or approach, right? Let's just say you are part of a program and it's a 12-month long program. And instead of just charging a one-time fee, it's more of an annual program. And you can maybe credit the fee, where let's just say if it's, $10K annually, or the first entry cost is $10K, you can maybe make the annual fee, recurring renewal fee at $5K. Now, this is only going to work if you do a great job at the $10K mark, or when people join your product for the first time, or else you can just, never see this revenue. But if you do a great job and people really love the ecosystem you build and the service you deliver or whatever product offer that you're selling, chances of those people coming back and renewing in a year will be very high. And one thing that I've seen in our space, this is like a product kind of tip, I guess, is that the one thing that people will pay for tenfold is access and personalization, right? There's a reason why certain, founders and big entrepreneurs, and I guess like you can use like Grant Cardone, for example, can charge anywhere from 6 figures plus per 1 hour of their time, right? Because it's access. You get proximity and you get personalization to exactly what your situation is. Now, if you have some sort of that incorporated into your product offer or service, and this can apply to agencies, it can apply to any sort of business, the more of a deeper personalized service you can deliver, the higher you can usually charge for it. And so if you're able to complement that and deliver that, it'll be really hard for someone to leave your ecosystem unless they've achieved their goal and they're like, hey, I'm all good here, which can happen. But sometimes people still want to stick around, right? Or be part of an ecosystem or be part of a community that's growing and thriving. Kind of in the situation that I've been part of as I've kind of purchased a lot of these high level groups and mentorships and, in-person events and masterminds of the sorts. But they really showcase that if you have a great product, you can just add that much more to your bottom line every single year, and how much marketing or sales effort you needed to put behind that extra revenue coming in, probably nothing, right? And so those are features that you can do and incorporate to make sure that you can have a strong LTV. But the only way that works is if everything we talked about from the beginning of this video, from creating demand to having a flywheel to building a moat, all of these things really are a string attached to one another. So if you're able to do those things properly, there should be no reason why you can expand your LTV to that degree, right? And so if you can start looking at your business rather than and your customers, not just as a one-time sale, but how you can squeeze the most revenue from this, but also deliver a really great service and have them become a raving fan for you. I'm pretty confident we've been able to do this and seen this. You're able to really increase the bottom line of your business and pull that one lever that moves the biggest needle in your entire business, right? So I'll leave it at that. If there's any part of this video that you'd like me to go deeper on, I would be happy to hear your guys' suggestions. So just drop them in the comments, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.